All right, this lesson is 8.3, area of circles. So we just finished circumference, which was the distance around the outside, and now we're moving on to area. Area is the amount of space inside a shape. And I almost think finding the area of circles is easier than the circumference because there's only one formula that you have to remember. It is A equals pi r squared. And you know that r is radius. And you know that for pi, we usually plug in 3.14. And I just want to remind you, when we square numbers, so like 8 squared is the same thing as 8 times 8, which is 64. If we had 3 squared, that's the same thing as 3 times 3, which is 9. If we have 6 squared, that's the same thing as 6 times 6, which is 36. And so the important thing that you need to remember when you're using this formula is that you square your radius first. Remember, when we're working with order of operations, we usually use PEMDAS to help us with the order that we perform each operation. And so P is parentheses, E is exponents. So again, you have to square this radius before you go on to the M, which is to multiply. And I'll show you some examples. But I know from past years teaching, that's usually where students make their mistake. They forget to square the radius first. So here's your first example. I'm going to clear my page. If you have to pause the video, you can go back. So EX1 is area of circles. And the next video will be semicircles. So let's say you have a circle that looks like this. I'm going to draw it all perfect for you. Let's see. Oh, that's not perfect. That's a dot. Let me try again. Okay, good. And let me give you the radius here, which is 7 centimeters. Again, we are finding the area for these examples. So I would always recommend starting with your formula. A equals pi r squared. Okay, done. Next, you want to plug in 3.14 for pi, and you want to plug in 7 for your radius. So area equals 3.14 times 7 squared. Now again, this is where students tend to get confused. You absolutely have to square this number first, and that's the same thing as 7 times 7, which you know is 49. So you have A equals 3.14 times 49. And finally, use your calculator. You can multiply those two together, and we have 153.86 centimeters squared. So when we're working with area, whether it's area of a circle, area of a square, area of a rectangle, you always want to square your units. And the reason for that is because we're multiplying centimeters. This is centimeters times centimeters. And centimeters times centimeters gets us centimeters squared. So that's our first example. So in this example, the radius is what was given to you. In the next example, I'm going to show you what you have to do when the diameter is given. I think I'm going to clear my page so that I have a nice blank slate. So pause it now if you're still writing. This is example B. That's not what I wanted. Go away. Here we go. Here's my circle. And again, this time I'm giving you the diameter. So you have 26 inches, and that would be all the way across your circle. Now again, when you're finding the area, you have to use the formula pi r squared. And right now, this is the diameter. So you can't plug your diameter into this formula. You have to know what the radius is. So if the diameter is 26 all the way across the circle, that means your radius has to be 13. Remember, you cut it in half. So we're going to use 13 for our R. So we've got 3.14 for pi, we've got 13 for r, and we have to square our 13. Again, that's where students seem to make mistakes. You have to square that number first. This is 13 times 13. So we have a, equals 3.14 times 169. That's what 13 times 13 is. And finally, you multiply those last two numbers together, and you have 530.66 inches squared. And you are done.